Hey, good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and welcome to the last day of February. It's the 28th today, and it's a Monday, and I'm back on the mend. As last week was a tough week as I was under the weather. Got a little scary there for a minute, but tested positive again for COVID. And I'll just say it really simply. I'm on a regimen of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, and the second I started taking, well, not the second, but within an hour of me starting to take it, I started to feel much better. I know it's not proven, but once again, this is my own personal experience. It was much different this time around than the last time that I had COVID. This was what I thought was just a bad head cold that just kept getting worse and worse. And then, like I said, I started, I think on my first dose was late Thursday. And within an hour, I probably felt 50% better in an hour and a half, and have been feeling progressively better as the days go on. I don't know. I had emails. I came in. I hadn't checked my email in 3 or 4 days. People were obviously. I know a lot of you are worried about me. Thank you for that. Thank you for your prayers, your thoughts. Don't have any knowledge of them trying to take me out, or anything like that. My mind won't even go there. So I don't believe that's the case. At least I hope that's not the case, but, I understand, how some of you may feel that way, but, Jason, I'm feeling much better today.
That's good. So we can start doing some radio and talk about gold and silver and all the other stuff that's flooding the panicky news cycle.
Yeah, and I guess we got to talk about Ukraine, right? I mean, it's on everyone's mind. I'll say this. This is the worst possible outcome. And let me give you some context. Obviously, the best possible outcome was it never happened, right? Trying to, and I hate to say it, and again, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Okay, this situation was created, in my opinion, by us and our NATO allies, right? And I don't know what they expected, right? Well, let's just say sparking debate about allowing Ukraine into NATO and these things, because in fairness, Ukraine really outside of, they do a lot of wheat and things like that. There's a big pipeline, obviously, of natural gas that runs through Ukraine, but they're a nothing in the world economy, really. They're a very corrupt country, have been for a long time, to the point of the president of the country had nothing to do with politics. Why? Because all the Ukrainian people know all their politicians were corrupt. I mean, the closest this guy did to anything political is he was on a TV show where he played the president. So this all should have been avoided, wasn't? Okay, so that would have been scenario. The best scenario was it didn't happen. The next best scenario was, which is what I was hoping for, and I shouldn't say, hope's the wrong word. It's what I expected, I guess, was Russia was going to mow right through them, and this thing would be, come today, the Russian flag would be flying in the capital city, right, and Russia was going to put in some puppet regime. Believe it or not, that would have been the second best outcome. Unfortunately, and part of, and I think about it this way, part of our failures, if you will, in Afghanistan or Iraq, right? These people didn't care about nationalism, right? In Afghanistan, it's all about tribal stuff, right? They could care less about, Afghan the pride of Afghanistan. It all has to do with whatever little tribe they're a part of. In Iraq, it all had to do about religion came before anything. They didn't care about Iraq. They cared more about I'm a Sunni or I'm a Shia. At least in the Ukraine, the Ukrainian people care very much so. Now, I don't know all of the propaganda that's being purported out there. By all accounts, the Ukrainians are battling. Their president, who was kind of a joke, has turned into a hero. Matter of fact, very likable. I know as far as Americans go, I can tell because I feel it myself. I'm like, yeah, stick it to them. Right? And you see these people, average people with no military experience and lining up to get guns. I mean, all these things to help protect the Ukraine.
It's quite the TV show.
Right? Now, again, I don't know how much, in our media, we're going to get all the positive Ukraine stories. And we're seeing it work, because what's happening? Everybody's sending them stuff. Weapons. Yeah. Even Germany said, hey, after the World War stuff, hey, nope, we're giving it to you. We want to send them stuff. Everybody, this is going to make it last longer. Which just means what? Well, these are going to get a lot worse on commodity prices before they get better. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason, we're coming right back. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe Jake with Jason Walker here this morning. We're talking Ukraine. I mean, because we've got to. We've had a big rally today in gold and silver and oil. Friday, we had this big, huge rally in stocks, and gold got wiped out, oil got wiped out. And it's so funny. Jason actually called me yesterday just to make sure that I was doing okay, because he was like, Joe, man, I've texted you a few times this week. I haven't heard anything. And I was like, I didn't get them. And it's kind of weird. I was telling him this thing. Ever since, they shut off 3G last week. And it's kind of weird. Like, my wife would not get any of my texts. Now, if we were in a group text with the two boys, she got them. But if it was just me and her, she wouldn't. Weird stuff's kind of been going on. So I told Jason, I don't know. Weird stuff. I'm fine. I'm great. I'm going to be there. We started talking about the markets, and we were both kind of laughing. And I said, whatever rallied on Friday and whatever got, unrallied on Friday, be ready for the exact opposite thing to happen on Monday, because, and really a lot of it, I think, has to do with the fact that there would have been a good reason for the rally on Friday. And I'm talking about Wall Street stocks rallied. If today we were talking about, like I said, the Russian flags flying over the Capitol, we've got a puppet regime, because by and large at that point, it's over, right? It's done with, we're going to put sanctions on, but the war's done. Instead, Jason, we've got the exact opposite now, and really a lot of it probably the fears of why Putin invaded in the first place is, yep, see, look at now all of you are throwing weapons at him, and let's face it, listen, you know what Ukraine was really known for up until, what did Ukraine even come to the forefront? A month ago? Right? No, right. Ukraine, most people can't even pick it out on a map. But let me tell you what it was known for, outside of corruption. Hackers, crypto criminals, weapons dealer. That's really what they, outside of, yep, they do have wheat there, yep, and yes, the pipeline from Russia runs through Ukraine, but that's really what it was all about. And now, lo and behold, we figured out a way, I guess, Jason, to give them even more weapons.
Yeah, well, and you know me, I think everything's as a show. It's all fake, and I believe this war is, even though it's real things being blown up and people being shot. It's a fake war, Joe. I'm convinced. Putin.
Oh, it has to be, doesn't it?
Putin is
there was no reason for it.
Putin's been given way too much credit. He does not make these decisions. I watch all these, the guys that are kind of like-minded like us, and then of course you got the mass media. Putin's given way too much credit, and you look at him. And, how many years has he been there? It's almost the kind of time for his retirement, isn't it? He's been there a long time in that role. And I was looking at stuff. It's funny. I went to Al Jazeera. Can you believe this? Sometimes you find more truth at Al Jazeera than you do the mainstream media across the world. And I was reminded of a bunch of things that I'd forgotten about. That, like, Russia's having trouble before this war feeding their population. They're not as bad off as North Korea, but they're having some economic struggles, and they've had it since the 90s. I saw videos of Russians pillaging grocery stores because they had no food. Why, if the Russians are such a big bad opponent, do they not have enough food for these soldiers? So you start asking questions, Joe, and I think about this, and what I see, Joe, believe me, what I think this is what's going on. I think the economic powers of the world are showing on a global scale what happens to bad guys. If they do bad things, we're going to shut them off. Why do I have a feeling this is a global way of showing a digital currency system and how it can be used against the quote-unquote bad guy? That's what it starts to look like to me.
That's another great point, right? So you see how hard it is. Right now, let me tell you what we're trying to do. When I say we, the powers that be. They want to figure out a way to cut Russia off, with the exception of natural gas and crude oil and related products, right? So crude oil, gasoline, diesel fuel, whatever, things that around those two key pieces. That's it. In their perfect world, that's what they would be able to do. So right now, that's very hard to do because they don't have the right instrument. Right, we can kick them out of SWIFT, right, and block their ability to pay for things, and at the same time block our ability to pay for things. But then all of a sudden, you think about oil at $100 is a lot. You think about gas at almost $4 is a lot. If they actually stopped selling crude oil, if they actually had to stop selling natural gas, the price couldn't go high enough. And I'm not talking about $200. I mean, Russia, you're talking just crude oil alone, over 7 million barrels a day. It can't be done. I mean, we could maybe mull our way through like 1 million barrels. They don't have the instrument to do it. And this has been the big struggle with what they're trying to do. So, Jason, I got to say this right now. I didn't even think this. But what a great point. Man, if we just had this digital system.
Well, and think about this, Joe.
Right? We can shut off everything but the stuff that, is what we deem to be globally important.
Think about this, Joe. What if Ukraine wins the war? What if that's supposed to be what happens? Hey, when someone's a bad guy, we shut him off, and the small guy can win. Just think about how that just makes the average person in the world think, well, that digital currency wouldn't be so bad. We could really punish all those criminals and bad guys out there. No more Putins can jump up out of nowhere and cause wars because we can just shut them off. I mean, just think how Bill Gates that sounds, right?
It really does, and I guess and here's the funny part. I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, brilliant observation. And yet at the same point, I'm like, man, do we even need that, right? I think most of us have already figured it out. We're not that dumb. Yeah, okay, now maybe the person that never stops listening to the sports talk radio or doesn't watch the news or only listens to, I don't even know, the Who Done It podcast. and has no reality of what's going on outside of the fact this is the house I live in and I go to work every day. I don't know. I don't want to know. Outside of those people, aren't most of us already like, yeah, we see what you're doing? I mean, do we have to go to this length? But it kind of feels like they think they do, Jason.
Right. I mean, people don't really understand how controlled our opinions are about things. Like, let me give an example. Here's a Ukrainian example. What do you think of, Joe, when I say Chernobyl? What do you think of that area after the meltdown of the nuclear plant there? What is your visual that's in your head about that place?
Well, ghost town, no go area.
Correct.
Right? I mean, that's when you say Chernobyl to me. That's why I immediately go to the nuclear thing, and then I don't know how many years ago, decade ago, they did a special, right? Everything's vacant, empty, and someone's got a machine that measures radioactivity, right. and essentially you're going to have 3-headed cows and all this other stuff happening.
Well, I watched a video about the wilderness wonderland, since it's a no-go zone, because if humans go there, you're just going to fall over and die, right? But there's wolves and bears and moose and deer and rats and mice and birds and cats. All the animals that the people left behind, all feral cats are there. And they're all healthy animals. There's no diseased animals. There's no freak animals. Even the frogs are fine. Everything's great. It's interesting how Russia went and took over that place. Well, that was one of the first places they took, with the Chernobyl no-go zone. You know, we had Gene Kuntz on the Half Empty Cup of Joe a couple of weeks ago saying that radiation isn't what we think it is. But see, that's how our opinions are driven. Putin's the bad guy, and he did all of this. It's all him. No, he didn't. Somebody told Putin to do that. Putin has controllers. I just wish somebody out there on the larger news outlets would actually say, hey, Putin doesn't make all these decisions by himself. No, it's all Putin. It's all Putin, Joe. He's and it's good to give him a bad guy, because then they only have to take one guy out when this thing is over. We'll say Ukraine wins the war, Putin gets humiliated, and he's going to retire out of public life, and they'll just put another Russian leader there.
But by the way, just because you brought it up, but I didn't know the answer. Putin's only 69.
That's retirement age. That's retirement age.
Well, but I'm saying we've got the fossil Joe Biden as our leader. I mean, you know.
Yeah, well, that's because they had to put him there. They didn't have any other good choices. They wanted Biden to be, I guess, our fall guy for this time frame. We got a lot of fall guys, Joe, as we change things. You know, people. I heard the news talk about, isn't this weird how the Democrats want war and they're beating the war drums, and you have Republicans that are worrying about this. And I wish I could scream at the TV. It's like, look, the reason that the Democrats are beating the war drums is because they're in power right now, and this is what the world wants.
People coming on TV saying we should join the fight. Literally, guys are on TV saying America should join and help Ukraine.
If Trump was president right now, it would be opposite. The Republicans would be beating war drums, and the Democrats would be like, I don't know. Putin's not that type of guy.
You're right.
That's exactly how it is. We have oligarchy. I wish people would understand this. The banks are the power system of this global system, and then there's a whole bunch of men we don't know their names that pull all the levers, make all the decisions, and we're just at their mercy, Joe. This is why I love gold and silver. It's like that one of those little things that you can pull out of their system. They can't control your gold if you have it physically in your possession. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, and you sit there and you think about all the things that are happening. Like right now, interest rates in Russia 20%.
Yep.
Wouldn't you love to get that rate of return? And they're back. They made a big announcement today. Hey, we're going to be buying even more gold. Of course, Russia, it's taken a while, but they've done a lot of things to insulate themselves. And Russia's a good one because they still have banks that are going to suffer because of this. But by and large, Russia had created an environment where they didn't do a lot in dollars. They didn't, the long arm of the U.S. Couldn't get to them. A lot of U.S. companies don't have a lot of money invested in Russia. So in that regard, Russia's a safer place to go after because it doesn't have as many ramifications throughout the banking system. But I'll tell you this right now, some of these European banks, they already know they've got to be a lot more careful not to disrupt the apple cart. But this is something where if it was a country that was more interwoven into the fabric, I think it would be a much different story.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely, Joe. And so when you watch all the news coverage, always be suspicious of what they're showing you, Joe. And I was looking at stories about. I did not realize how bad off the Russian economy was. I thought they had recovered from the 1990s. It appears that they've just never recovered, and they're in a let's say it this. To be
yes and no. There's there's both sides to this about what they say about the Russian economy. It's very energy driven. Yep. Things have gotten better lately than before. But yeah, Russia's not an economic powerhouse by any means. But I'll say this. It's more than just a gas station, right? Because I've heard some people say, Russia's just a gas station. It's a little more than that. But to your point, Jason, this is not some high on the hog society by any means, right? I mean, let's face it, they don't have a life of excess and luxury. What they really have is kind of where America's going. We've got a handful of super rich, and then everybody else is serfdom plus, 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason here. And, right, Jason really, as Jason was talking about economic conditions, right, this is kind of where we're going, right, where Russia's got the elite and then kind of everybody else just trying to get by, right, Jason?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you see videos of Russian soldiers robbing convenience stores and grocery stores, there's definitely something wrong. They're not, whatever we're seeing on TV is not what's actually happening, Joe. So, when I started looking at the economic problems that Russia's having before this war, some people. How about this, Joe? Some people think, well, you got this, the allied Russian China war machine. They're gonna be super powerful with the Chinese economy and Russia's war machine, and they're gonna rise up and be this big enemy to America. But where's China? They're not jumping up to help Russia. And I'll say this: the central banks that run China and that run the Fed, it's a lot of the same guys. So I don't know why people think that Russia is going to jump up and ally itself with China and be this big opponent. Check this out. If Ukraine wins this war, then why would a China-Russia allyship? What does that make them look if they can't take over Ukraine? And I have the sneaking feeling, Joe, that Ukraine's going to win this thing. That's right now. That's my feeling.
That would be something. We'll see what happens. But I'll say this too, right? Think about it in the other context, because to Jason's point. Imagine it being in reverse. Where would they go here? They would go to the homeless camps in California. They'd go to San Francisco and Los Angeles, Baltimore, Chicago, New York, right? And look at all the cesspools, and they would show that. I mean, right? And how far away are we? Think about this. We're a society very quickly that is evolving into nobody owns anything. The largest homeowner in the country is Wall Street firms, right? By record amounts. We have home ownership rates that are getting dangerously close to like 50%. Half the country can't own a home. Car ownership rates. It used to be. I mean, how long? I don't even know. When did leasing start? 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And it was kind of just a gimmick. Everyone saw it as a gimmick. Oh, yeah, hey, this is a way to get you into a nice car that you really can't afford. And, oh, by the way, you better not drive it very much. Because as soon as you go over 10,000 miles, you're going to cost a fortune. Now, look at, fast forward 20, 25 years later. Heck, people got a lease. We're not talking about BMWs and Land Rovers. Now, granted, they're doing that as well, but I mean, there's so many. They're out there leasing Ford Focuses, Jason.
Yeah, that's right. The standard of living has gone down every single decade since the 50s. This is a planned event. America is blessed with so many resources that if you want to globalize and turn America, as a part of a global system, there's a lot of ground to cover to push us down. And so these guys, these bankers, they don't want to get caught stealing in broad daylight. They don't want to get their hand caught in the cookie jar, so to speak. They want somebody else to get their hand caught in the cookie jar for them. So there's got to be fall guys. There's got to be people that do the dirty work for them. And all of this, Joe, just like you said, it's a lower standard of living, and we're seeing it. And I love the point of home ownership. Home ownership is going to be a thing of the past, and that's happening really soon. I mean, I know Boulder is more of a well-to-do area, but since when was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,800 square foot home $1.1 million in any area, Joe? 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2,500 square foot home in Boulder, $3.6 million. These aren't the super luxurious homes of the rich. These are average large houses or even medium-sized houses, Joe.
Yeah, and Forbes was out talking about welcome to 2030. So think about, here we are, 2022, 2030, not very far away. Welcome to my city. Or should I say our city? I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a home. I don't own any appliances or any clothes. It may seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in this city. Everything you considered a product now has become a service, right? We have access to transportations and accommodations, food, and all the things we need in our daily lives. One by one, all of these things became free. So it ended up not making sense for us to own much of anything at all. And again, you just start to think about it. They're talking about communication digitalized and free to everyone. Clean energy. Well, we're going to make that free. Transportation. We're going to make that free, right? And this is kind of, we're seeing this in Forbes. They're exaggerating a little bit. But really, isn't that what's really happening out in especially in the United States and society today, where give up all your freedoms and we'll give you stuff in return? Socialism. Right?
Socialism. I don't know how we get from a 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom house for $7 million, 2,600 square feet. How do you go from that to socialism? Because there's a big gap there, Joe. And maybe it's like you said, like Russia. You have oligarchs, you have rich guys, and then you have peasants and lords. That's where it's probably going to end up. Because who's going to be able to rent a $7 million house, Joe?
Yeah, right. I mean, I keep shaking my head. Today, Target announced, yes, we're raising wages again. So Target, they've gotten really smart and they're sophisticated. They know, hey, I don't need to pay the same starting wage in Spank Bottom, Mississippi as I do in L.A. So they've come out with this scale now. The lowest starting wage, and again, this is out today, so coming to a Target near you, it's going to be $15. But they said, depending on where you live, the starting wage at a Target may now be up to $24. So Spank Bottom, Mississippi, $15. Phoenix, Arizona, right, maybe we're 18, maybe we're 20, right? San Francisco, right, it's going to be $24. Right? And again, this is just emblematic of what's happening. Think about, go back to the 80s and the unions at Ford and GM. Everybody was all upset. My God, these guys are making $28 an hour. $24 an hour at a Target just to get you in the door. Painter Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. Gold's 1906. Silver 2450. Russia has now announced. So again, this is what we're going to see day in and day out. All of these different announcements. First, we were out again talking back to SWIFT this morning, trying to figure out, like I said, how to allow for natural gas and crude oil, but nothing else. Here's the thing. I wonder, too, would Russia ever just say, well, we're just going to turn it off? Now, granted, that would be devastating to Russia, but if they're getting devastated enough, could that be the ultimate weapon, saying, hey, we're just not going to ship anybody but our friends, the Chinese, any oil or gas? Wow, I don't know. But here's what Russia's saying right now. They're blocking no foreigner can sell any Russian bonds, so you can't get out of your bonds, which, by the way, their bond market, you know, when we talked about yields now at 20%, I want to say they were 10% on Friday. Those are huge losses, right, for people that already own bonds. Now they've just said that none of their citizens are going to be allowed to transfer monies into other hard currencies. In other words, hey, you can't go to euros or go to dollars. You're stuck with euros, and you cannot transfer any money abroad. Again, this is what we see anywhere where there's turmoil in the world, right? They shut off the banks. They don't let you have access to your money. You're not allowed to transfer it out, right? You're not allowed to do any of these things, Jason. Just another reason why everybody needs to have gold in their portfolio. Another reason why I tell everybody, listen, don't have too much money sitting in your bank accounts, because at any point in time, for whatever reason, they can just freeze it. I mean, there's a reason why gold been out again today. Gold is the currency of last resort. Of course it is, right? Because it's outside of the system, Jason.
Right, yeah, I saw some reports of bank runs in Russia, kind of similar to, what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, when the truckers' bank accounts in Canada were being shut off. So there was bank runs in Canada, and the powers that be they're watching these behaviors very closely to see where they're going to head next. And why do I get the feeling that when this whole thing is said and done, maybe a year, 5 years down the road, 10 years, why do I get the feeling that if this is a planned event, that Russia's economy is going to be doing really well in the future, Joe? Because, like I say, if it's rigged the way I think it's rigged, Russia's going to be rewarded for pushing us into this digital currency situation we're headed for.
You know what? We're going to have to write that down. We're going to have to write that down and go back into the Wayback Machine and see if in 2030, 2035, that holds up, because that very well could be.
Yeah, I mean, Russia has been trying really hard to become like the OPEC of Asia, to where they give all the natural resources, the natural gas and oil that Europe needs, just like we have OPEC kind of trying to control our oil prices here in America. I think that's what they're heading for, but they're just not quite getting there. So, I mean,
yeah, and again, negotiations going on. I'm so glad you brought that up, because if Russia was this terrible bad, because let's face it, right? Russia's been in the bad guy bus ever since I've been alive, right? We used to, I still remember, we used to do nuclear bomb drill when I was in elementary school. And we'd get under our desk. I mean, it was the dumbest thing ever. And why? Because of the Russians, And the 1980 hockey teams, one of those memories as a kid that I'll never forget, right? And of course, we didn't even win the gold medal, but we happened to beat the Russian team. But if they were so bad, then why would Europe allow themselves to be so dependent upon them, right?
Right. Exactly, Joe. And I think they actually won the gold medal, so I don't know. I'll have to have someone call us. Someone's probably screaming at us. I think they beat Russia in the semifinals, and I think they beat Sweden for the gold medal. I think. I could be wrong. Sorry, Joe.
I don't think you are.
Well,
I'm going to look it up. We got
to look it up. We got to look it up. I'm pretty sure I saw the movie. I think the movie with Russell, Kurt Russell. I think they beat Russia.
Oh, okay. Well, then if you saw the movie, then you're right. I didn't watch the movie.
I kind of remember 1980.
Again, you don't think about that. I didn't even know that, but I know we beat the Russians.
We beat the Russians. Yeah, that was out there for everyone to hear. That's for sure. They were the bad guys. You know, the 1984 they boycotted our Olympics. Remember?
Yes, that's right. Yes, because we boycotted their Olympics.
Correct. Yep. You know, we had the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, and the Russians didn't show up because we were in the midst of the Cold War. Yeah. The Russians have always been, here's the thing is the Russians have always been the bad guys because their central bank didn't really line up with ours at all, Joe, until the wall fell in 1991. Then suddenly they slowly became a part of this system. And I'm wondering if what's going on is Russians just want a stronger position in the system, so they're gonna play the part of the bad guy here. That's what I'm seeing. That seems to be what they're doing because they're still doing business. If this was really a war against the West, why are they still selling us oil? Why are they still doing business with us?
Yeah, and again, if this was such a big deal, why wouldn't Russia just shut it off?
Yeah. If they were really apart from the system, they could just shut off. They're going to fight, right? Well, they're not fighting the system. They have this thing in Ukraine going on. That's why people are confused. And that's why everybody's joining up. The global peer pressure for all these nations to line up and give weapons to Ukraine and save that little country. Who's going to be the guy that's like, well, wait a minute, shouldn't we just be pacifists, or should we just stay out of this? There's nobody doing that now, Joe. Nobody's saying, oh, I'll just stay out of this.
No, it's amazing what's happened over the last, say, 3 or 4 days, where a lot of people now, everybody seemingly wants to get involved. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. Final segment here before Jason and I switch gears to the half-empty cup here. U.S. Silver Eagles, and this is more for Jason. We've Source A has none. Source B has none. We got a C source. They have some. So, Jason, you can continue to sell those. I've got 50 $20 gold pieces today at $21.95. $21.95. That's about $35 off. So that's a pretty good value here, especially with gold up double digits today. 800-951-0592. The Dow is mixed right now off the lows. We'll see. Is this just a midday rally or not? Remains to be seen. Crude oil still up over $3.50, just a few cents under $95 a barrel as we watch all of this play out, and sanctions on the left and sanctions on the right. And I think Jason probably nailed it today. At the end of this, why will it be, man, if we only have the digital currency, we could have put the sanctions on a lot better, and this outcome could have been different, right? Yeah. That sort of thing. And again, we'll see how long this plays out, but right now that's where we sit this morning.
Yeah, Joe, I think in the near future we're going to see a lot of the suffering Russian people videos. I started seeing some of the protest videos, the anti-war protests in Russia. They're starting to show some of that. But I think that's what we're going to start seeing. We're going to start seeing the suffering of the Russian people because of their big bad leader, Putin. And I think you're right. At the end of the day, whenever this thing ends or however it ends, and if I'm right, let's just say I'm right, and Ukraine wins this thing, pushes Russia out of there. It sure seems like the global community stopping the bully. Man, just what a happy story that would be.
Right? Yeah, that would be, man. You're putting you got a big positive spin going on today.
Well, it's not positive because we're going to go to digital currency and they're going to enslave us because of this. Happy stories turns into slavery, Joe. Unfortunately, that's what happens.
Be very, very careful of the happy story. All right, there you have it. 800-951-0592. And other news. There was other news out there. The U.S. trade deficit surging again. Just when you thought it couldn't get any bigger, apparently exports were down, imports were up. Trade deficit up another 7% in January, $107.6 billion, a new all-time high for the month of January. By the way, it's the second straight month in a row where we've set new all-time record highs. And just remember what that actually means. It's another $107.6 billion of wealth leaving the United States, Jason.
Well, Germany just decided to up their military budget above the NATO. There's like a NATO level that you can't spend too much of your budget on military. Well, they're going to up.
Yeah, it was like 2%, and Germany said, right? Yeah, don't let a good crisis go to waste. Got to get the war machine going.
So that trade deficit in the months to come might come down as we actually do produce military stuff. So maybe this will be good for the trade deficit. Maybe we'll get a little relief in the right direction, Joe. Maybe temporarily, but there you go. They get rid of all these weapons that have just been sitting around. They're useless. Let's blow everything up quickly in Ukraine as fast as we can and start selling.
800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. God bless everybody.